autopsy results not due back for weeks, yet new details are emerging suggesting Carradine was tied up with traditional bondage knots. The question remains, was somebody else there that fateful night? Straight to my expert panel. Judy Kuriansky, Dr. Judy, clinical psychologist and sex expert. We need you tonight, Judy. Mike Walters, assignment editor for TMZ. Always glad to have you. But first, a very, very special guest. David Carradine's ex-wife, Gail Jensen, joins us on the phone. Gail, thanks for joining us.
How are you, Jane?
I'm doing good. How you doing tonight?
Oh, okay. Just kind of still shocked.
I'm sure.
And by the way, it was 15 years.
All right, 15 years you guys were together. I believe married for about a decade. Tell us about David Carradine's obsession with bondage. Give us some examples of how he used to tie himself up at home.
Well, I'll give you one particular one,
Okay.
and I think it's been already out. I was working at Universal Studios, and it was pouring rain, and he took a yellow, legal pad and drew arrows all the way through the house. It was a giant house, and down the stairs, and I opened the editing room, and he had himself tied up like Jesus with pulleys and the whole thing, and I just said, "You've got to be kidding, David."
Now,
So I left him,
yeah.
and my friends were coming over, so I took them down to the editing room, and we just all laughed.
So you showed your friends?
Yes.
And what was David wearing at the time?
Just his Speedos.
Because he liked to wear his Speedos.
He loved to wear his Speedos. He wore them everywhere, even riding his horses.
Now, apparently he would plan these bondage rituals for weeks, go to the hardware store and get materials?
That's right.
Well, tell me about that. I mean, what kind of materials would you get from the hardware store for bondage?
Well, what I discovered was he got the nylon rope, like 1/4 inch, and pulleys, so he could pull himself up. And I don't know how he managed to do it, but he was a genius.
Now,
And he would just meditate. I mean, I really think for him, it was a form of meditation and relaxation away from stress, and I never really considered it like that dangerous.
okay,
And this is such a shock to me.
but it did have a sexual component. Let's be real.
Oh,
Gail.
well, of course.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, I'm sure he was dreaming, having good dreams
So,
in his mind.
in other words, he would use this as a form of sexual release.
Exactly. Escape. I mean, release, yeah.
And as the wife, that didn't bother you. You figure, well, he's not cheating on me anyway, right?
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, Gail, I want to thank you for your candidness and for joining us, and my condolences. And I think your explanation that it was meditation and relaxation for him is interesting. You know, Carradine's fourth wife, Marina Anderson, also made a very shocking allegation last night on Larry King Live. Listen to this.
You alleged Carradine engaged in an incestuous relationship with a very close family member. What were you talking about?
That's what the document says. I think it's pretty clear what the document is saying.
That's quite an accusation.
Well, I stand by my document.
Mike Walters, what do we know about that?
You know, there was a divorce with her when she printed some stuff, as a declaration about their marriage and why it ended. And some of the stuff was that he practiced sexual deviant activity that sometimes was life-threatening, is what it says. And then there was also, a part about a family member. Now, it doesn't get into detail about it. It's just like, these are the reasons why we divorced. But I think it's interesting, you just had Gail on, and I spoke to her earlier today, and what's really interesting about that part of the story is the non-sexual part and the genitals.
Phone line to lighten up. Kim, South Carolina, your question or thought, ma'am?
Hello, Jane.
Hey.
I was wondering if this sexual act is a single person act, or do you need one or more people to follow it through?
The answer to that is that it can be a single person act, or it can be two people. I have heard from teenagers where they strap belts around each other's neck, stay back to back, and then lean forward so that they're choking each other so that the oxygen is out of their brain, and then they try to release, and sometimes this has ended up in death. So it can be, you could do it alone, autoerotic asphyxiation, where you hold your own neck or strap yourself up or tie yourself like he likely did, or with two people. This is no fun and games. This is no magic and meditation. It is absolute poppycock to call it that. That is an absolutely perverted behavior, and it is dangerous and deadly.
All right. TMZ reports the knot around Carradine's neck was a typical knot used in the bondage community that allows a person to escape easily if they're losing consciousness. But as you just heard, Dr. Judy is not buying any of that. Mike Walters, what do we know about the second autopsy and insurance?
Yeah, you know, they're doing a second autopsy today, and one of the reasons that his family has gone and done this and wanted it done here in Los Angeles is the reason that if it's considered a suicide, or the medical examiner says it is, remember, they get no life insurance against the policy. Now, if it's considered an accident, some insurance even pays double for any sort of accident, and a sexual accident is not discriminated against in that fashion in most policies. So this is very important right now, whether or not it's considered a suicide or accident, so this money gets paid to the family from his life insurance policies. So that's where this whole thing is right now with that.
Dr. Judy, I mean, you're very adamant that this is all very dangerous. Is there any way to have this kind of safe play, and why do people do it?
Okay, well, there are two levels, really, of this bondage. There's submission and dominance, it's called, where there can be couples who encourage each other to be the boss, and they may tie up with fur, mind you.
Not
restraints.
fur. Oh, my God.
Or I know you wouldn't like that, but or scarves, okay, and have it be sex play, but then you cross the line where it really becomes perverted and deadly. So
and
there are
we
really
are crossing
two
the
levels
line
of that.
to
And
ending the
cross
show.
line there.
You are watching Issues on HLN.